I went back to this device maybe about 2 months ago. I had every iPhone, the 12, 13 Pro Max, 14 Pro Max. 14 Pro Max was my daily driver for a little while. And then I was like, I really don't need this. This phone right now, when I was using the 14 Pro Max, the experience, except for Dynamic Island, which I am not a fan of, was no different of an experience than using the 13 Pro Max. And I felt the same way when I went from the 12 Pro Max to the 13 Pro Max. I felt the exact same way about the user experience, minus the incredible battery on the 13 Pro Max. And then the jump from this phone here to the 12 Pro Max, that was more about the design change, right? We got the squared off edges, and that's what we still have right now on iPhones. That might change on the next iPhone 15. That's the rumor. We're going back to some rounded corners like we have here on the 11 Pro Max. But that was the big jump, because if you guys didn't know, we even have the same display on the 11 Pro Max and the 12 Pro Max. So they kept the display, just gave us a brand new and refreshed design, which I absolutely love. That squared off edge, like the iPhone 4S, the 5, those are some of my favorite iPhone designs of all time. Not my favorite iPhone, but my favorite iPhone designs of all time. But I will say this, using and holding the newer phones are not as easy and comfortable as holding this device. These rounded edges on here, these stainless steel edges that this device does have, this thing feels light. It's easy to hold. I love using this without a case. And, if you want a case for it, pick up the Pataka case, or the aramid fiber case. That's how I roll. I will always have the aramid fiber cases on my devices. But this is just a much more comfortable device. Now, what I love about using and going back, I wanted to test it. So I went from the iPhone 14 Pro Max back to the 11 Pro Max. And I have to say, there is really no difference in using the device on a day in and day out. Even 60 hertz is smooth to where 120 hertz on the iPhone 14 Pro Max. Yeah. Can you tell the difference? Sure. Does it make a difference? Absolutely not. Look how smooth 60 hertz is on an iPhone. It really is on a whole different level than other phones that are running 60 hertz. And it always has been. It's always been just something that Apple does that just works. They have nailed 60 hertz and the smoothness of it compared to, say, Android devices. It just is better. There's really no other way to put it. It just is better. So I don't mind going from 120 hertz on an iPhone to 60, because it's not going to be as drastic if you were doing that, say, on an Android device. It's still going to be a very smooth experience. Now, as far as the performance on here, and this has the A13 Bionic chip in it, and I'm still getting updates. I literally just did another update before this video, before I even shot this video, and I'm on 16.4, and I just got a security update for it. You can see this is the 256 gigabyte model. Now, this does come in either 64. This was when Apple was doing some weird stuff with the storage, right? 64 was their entry level for a while, and that wasn't enough. Even when this phone came out, 64, 256, and 512 are the options available. And right now, you could pick up this device for around $400 to $450, maybe even a little more depending on the condition. But I did pick up this device here in mint condition. The only thing that is not mint on this device is the battery health. And we'll talk about the battery in a second. But the condition on this device is absolutely flawless. No imperfections anywhere. And I paid right around $400 for this device. An absolutely beautiful device. My favorite color iPhone of all time. This midnight green color. And again, it does come in 4 different colorways: the gold, space gray, silver, and the midnight green, with 3 different storage options. 6.5-inch display, 800 nits. So it is bright enough even outside. Of course, the newer iPhones are much, much brighter, right? But this will still do the job. Now, the battery on here, this does get me through a day. I do have to charge it towards the end of the day, but there's a reason for that. This battery, the battery health on here, it's at 84%. So if you are looking to pick up a used device, maybe you can get a good deal if the battery health is even worse, and then spend $50 on a battery and have somebody fix it. But if you know how to do it yourself, you can save a few bucks. But try and get one with some good battery health, because it will make a difference. But even at 84%, it still gets me through most of the day. If I'm using this thing day in and day out, a heavy user, and I'm in a unique position. Like, I have two phones. I use an Android device and an iPhone. So this battery, it never, ever drains because I'm only using it for really half the day. And maybe by the end of the day, I don't even charge this thing up every night. Like, I charge it every 2 days, every 3 days. I'll throw it on a charger for 20 minutes and that'll get me through another day. So the battery on here, even at 84%, it does get me through a day. But again, I am in a different position. If I was just using this as my daily, I would end up charging this device at the end of the day, even maybe early evening, like 6, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock. I might have to top it off a little bit for maybe 10, 15 minutes to charge this guy up. Now, the display on here, look, it's not going to compare to the newer phones. This was Apple's, XDR display, and it's fantastic. It has great speakers. I'll turn on the speakers really quick so you can hear it.
Priest and Zeno are all dead. Do you hear me? Dead.
I'm watching some DBZ manga. But the speakers on here are excellent, very, very loud, and you're not going to have any issues watching content on here, especially with the volume on the speakers and the actual quality of the display. It is very nice and a very color accurate display. Now, again, I'm talking about the display, but I'll give you some specs really quick just so you guys can know, because I know some people might ask. So 6.5-inch HDR display, 2688 by 1242 is the pixel resolution, and that's 458 for the PPI Patrol. You do have the True Tone display, the wide color display, the P3 color gamut. You do have the haptic touch on here. Again, I did mention 800 nits of brightness on here already. And, fingerprint resistant. They have that coating on it. Now, this is also rated at an IP68, so 4 meters for up to 30 minutes with the A13 Bionic, 3rd generation neural engine. But let's talk about these cameras. So we do have the triple camera setup on the back, but much smaller than what we have on the newer phone. So we have the triple 12 megapixel. We got the ultra wide, the wide, and the telephoto on here. The 2x optical zoom and digital zoom up to 10 times. We do have portrait mode with the advanced bokeh and depth control. Now, video quality on here is excellent, and I still use this device right now for all of my B-roll and every video that you see on YouTube. It does take 4K video up to 24, 30, and 60 frames per second, 1080p HD video recording at 30 or 60, and 720 at 30. But you do get some slow-mo if you want to do some slow-mo video, 1080p at 120 or 240 frames per second. Then video quality on here is absolutely excellent. Now, one thing you do need to consider is this phone does not have 5G. So if that is a deal breaker, well, then that's a deal breaker. But LTE is still very fast. In most areas across the states, 5G is not really ready yet. It's getting there in some places where you're close to a city. But for the most part, where I am, in places like where I live, 5G is barely available anywhere. So I'm using LTE most of the time anyway if I am not on Wi-Fi. But LTE is still super fast, like no worries at all. Again, the user experience on this device is still fantastic. In my opinion, this might be the best deal if you can get it with good battery life, the best option for you to get if you are buying an iPhone. This thing was a beast when it came out. This was a $1,500 phone 4 years ago when this dropped. If you had the 512 gigs of storage, and even the base model at like 64 gigs of storage was around $1,000. Was a beast then, and it still is an incredible iPhone to get right now. So if you are looking to jump into an iPhone, into the Apple ecosystem, and you don't want to spend a lot of money, I always go back and forth with this. Like, should you buy a used iPhone that's cheap, but an older flagship, instead of getting just a lower end model of the iPhone 12 for a cheaper price, right? What's better? The iPhone 13, the regular version, or something like the 11 Pro Max, the flagship version from a few years ago? In my opinion, I'm always going to go with the flagship compared to, say, a cheaper, newer model. because flagships just have the best of the best. At that time, yes, there are better ones now, but only on the pro models. Just keep that in mind. This phone is a hell of a deal. And if you can get it around $400, it's a steal of a deal. In mint condition, $450 maybe, depending on how much storage you get. Still takes fantastic photos, still takes incredible video, silky smooth, the best looking color ever on an iPhone, in my opinion. You guys drop some comments and let me know what is your favorite color on an iPhone of all time. But that frosted matte finish on the back, the stainless steel sides on here, the notch, a little wider notch on here, but it's still an eyesore on every phone ever made by Apple. But the 11 Pro Max, guys, let me know what you think of this device. If you used it, if you used to have it, if you still have it, drop some comments. Let me know. Hit that like button. Drop a sub. I'll be back soon. Peace.